Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, all subscribers, viewers, and supporters of this channel. You're marvelous. Life cycle perspective, ISO 14001 version 2015. What has life cycle perspective got to do with ISO 14001? Are you talking about the egg and chicken life cycle thing? If you ask me, egg would end up as egg naan or egg prata and then sewage, and that's it. Chicken for me will be chicken curry and then sewage, and that's it. End of the life cycle for both egg and chicken. Is it about that? I'll come to you. I'll come back for this. But before we go on, I'd like to implore to all my fellow Muslims, if you are in a mosque for the Friday prayers and also attending any religious lessons and teachings by scholars, please do not watch this video. Thank you very much. I wish you blessed with Jannatul Naim. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I love you for that. Now, this video, we are going to talk about the application of life cycle assessment, actually, and looking at it from the life cycle perspective of any environmental aspect or any matter for that instance. It is used in ISO 14001 version 2015 when identifying environmental impact for the respective environmental aspect, and also this mindset or this Hintergrund in deutsche Sprache, or this mind background of anything that we handle in our life, especially in factories. When we want to do the operational control procedures, we need to have the life cycle perspective of all the environmental aspects involved in our work. So in this particular example, we'll discuss about paper. All right, and what about paper? We'll look at the entire life cycle of paper, and then we understand what is life cycle perspective. This will be a useful knowledge if you got to identify environmental aspects and impact, which I will show you in later videos. All right, let's go on. What is environmental management system again? Let's recap. Now, environmental management system is about what? It's about this. Managing what? It manages what? Environmental aspects. Therefore, it is very important for us to identify the environmental aspects that we got to manage. And how we manage it is by fulfilling compliance obligation. We'll talk about it later in other videos, and perhaps, and also address risk and opportunities. Now, in the identification of environmental aspects, we got to know what is environmental aspects. And then we got to look at these environmental aspects from its life cycle perspective as we draw on the operational control for processes involving environmental aspects that we are managing. So what is environmental aspects? Here you are. Definition again. What is it about? According to ISO 14001 version 2015, environmental aspects are element of organizations' activities, products, and services that interacts and can interact. If you ask me, anything, a matter, a substance, material, raw material, waste, intermediates, machines, tools, oil, anything except process name. Process name like printing. Printing is not an environmental aspect. Printing is the element of one of the elements in the organization's activities. Printing is an activity actually. It involves environmental aspects such as ink, printing machine itself, printing rollers, papers perhaps, spent ink, waste ink, discarded ink, electrical energy. These are all environmental aspects in the printing process. All right, so anything that interacts or can interact with the environment, they are environmental aspects. All right. But why do we need to know life cycle perspective? Why do we need to know life cycle perspective? We need to know life cycle perspective in order for us to be able to determine the appropriate environmental impact from that life from the life cycle perspective of those environmental aspects. All right, life cycle perspective comes from life cycle assessment. All right, and what I have before you here is an example of a product life cycle. The product is, in this case, the whole car body, which is already made. That is the product of what? Metal. So this line of life cycle that I'm talking about right now, showing before you in this picture, is the life cycle line of metal. Okay, the car body is a product, it's a finished product involving metal, and then it will be assembled into the car. Now the car, once it is ready, it will be assembled and it will be used and used and used until eventually it is kaput, literally, and then it has got to be disposed of in yards, crushed. Metals are recycled, and that is good. It's a metal conservation, environmental impact. But eventually, towards the end of its life cycle, the metal has lost its properties. It cannot be recycled anymore. And upon further use, you get cracks, it becomes dust, and it's just like soil. It has lost its property, it has limited lifespan, and then it arrives to the end of its life cycle. And for example, in this case, we have metal waste. Okay, let's go around this area. It is not able to be used anymore. Eventually, after a series of recycling this metal from one form to another product, and eventually it becomes unwanted metal debris that is not good anymore in metallurgical sciences. You ask metallurgists for that. And eventually it will be dumped into landfill and interacts with the environment, and that will cause eventually towards the end of its life cycle soil pollution. What I've just showed you is from the car to the landfill. That is the life cycle perspective of this material, which is the car frame, and we have been looking downstream. So the impact downstream of this car, eventually, of course, intermediate, in between, we may have resource conservation because you're recycling metal. After a point, it is no longer usable, and in many legislations, they are called solid waste and has got to be disposed in landfill. But if you ask me, I won't dispose in landfill. For me, waste doesn't exist. I will make something good about it, from it. All right. So that is downstream. Now let's go upstream. I hope you're able to catch me. Upstream of the life cycle perspective of this car. This is upstream. It comes the materials that were built into this car frame, the whole body, is from what? Metal fabrication, metal stamping, forming, bending, you name it, electroplating or whatever. Okay, And all these are interacting with the environment. There are an array of processes which is in between that. There's a lot of interactions with the environment, but let us go towards the end of the pipe. It comes from metal ore. Where does it come from? Mining work. And mining work of what? Rock structures. What are rock structures? Resources. Environmental resources. It has been excavated, blasted, digged by shaft. Any method known to human to extract metals is being done to get those resources, and what is left behind are depleted resources. In this case, the environmental impact towards the end of the life cycle is the resource depletion. But if you ask me, it would also include damaged geological structure. So that's the upstream of the life cycle of this particular car frame. So what we have seen is both end, almost the end. Metal ore to metal waste, off-cut we can call it, or metal waste. That is the entire life cycle perspective of the car frame. I hope that is comprehensible. Thank you. Let's go into the next slide. I will show you something. This is a graphic that I attempt to disclose before you. The message or the morale of the graphic is we have been using for our quality of life things, or we can call them environmental aspects, which were or which originated or which are originating from environmental resources, the earth, especially the rock structures, for metals, for fossil fuel, even agriculture. We are using environmental resources, land, we have fertilizers, pesticides, additional nutrients, we change the landscape of the land, all sorts of things. Now, in short, this is upstream. For example, fuel comes from fossil fuel. What do you get? It gets into the production, lubricants, etc., in making a particular product, and then this product is being used, all right, and it is being used and reused, and eventually it is disposed of in terms of byproducts or many other things. So this is the entire life cycle perspective of a product, and in each of these processes the extraction of raw materials from natural resources would cause resource depletion. Common, isn't it? And water, some of us extract water from aquifer for production processes, for food manufacturing perhaps, or in some instances they extract resources from the soil in the form of guys, heated water, steam, and extract a lot of it, and that would give an eventual environmental impact to that ecosystem in the forms of influencing or lopsiding the hydrological properties of the water flow in the entire area. We would call it hydrological disbalance or imbalance. So that is the environmental impact due to the interaction of all these aspects to the environment, be due to our extraction of water that interacts with the environment and causes hydrological disbalance. That's one. And perhaps metals, as you know, it interacts with the environment. We excavate metal, causing resource depletion as well, and geological damage, as you know already. These are the environmental impact. Okay, when we are extracting all these environmental aspects from environmental resources, natural resources we call it, then we produce them. Another area of interactions. It can cause air pollution, water pollution, affluent air pollution because we smelt metal in the furnace, causing emissions of air impurities, causing air pollution, generation of hazardous waste, causing soil pollution, etc. And eventually, all these materials are interacting with the environment. For example, solid waste will interact with the environment and causes an environmental impact, which is known as soil contamination. Effluent over here, wastewater coming. Wow, a lot of wastewater from industrial processes causing what? Water pollution. Okay, and a lot of heating is involved. Reactions using heat setting, thermal settings involved, involving the combustion of materials. All these are causing air pollution. So these are all the environmental impact. The red font over there is environmental impact on your left, okay? And all these in this, for example, these red small fonts here, these are all environmental aspects, okay? As products are all environmental aspects. Why? Because they interact with the environment. Paper over here is a product from POPs, and they are all environmental aspects. So these are environmental aspects that interact with the environment and causing those environmental impact. And we have to know when we do life cycle perspective and determining environmental impact, we need to know whether our environmental aspect is input or output. We have got to know that our environmental aspect is input or output into the process. If it is an input aspect, we got to look at the upstream of its life cycle perspective for their corresponding environmental impact. If the environmental aspect is input aspect, then their associated environmental impact would be somewhere downstream of its life cycle perspective. That's the idea that I'm trying or attempting to show you right now to ensure that the promulgation or to ensure that your establishment of environmental management system ISO 14001 is correct, if not accurate. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide. I will show you an example actually. Now, let's go back to paper. This is why we are here. I'm trying to give an example of the life cycle perspective of paper. Look, paper is common to all, and we know paper, and we know that paper, this is our friend, the paper, that fortunately today, as I'm doing this, we are using less paper. We are almost paperless. A good thing, isn't it? Where does it come from? If you use paper, it comes from a paper factory, a pulp and paper industry making paper in the form of boxes, cartons, or newsprints. All right, these are all papers. What are their raw materials? Those raw materials are from pulps. And what is it? Where does it come from? Trees from the forest. So in order to produce paper, we have got to cut forests. This is a very popular environmental awareness, what do you call, seminar, or perhaps a short story even told to pupils in kindergarten. Here we are looking at the life cycle perspective. And forest, what happened when we cut forests? Do we chop one tree at a time, one tree in a week? Or we have to take down like acres of forest trees in a week? Remember, it's all about business. Business is about margin. And business is about optimization of business resources. Therefore, we cut a lot of trees per unit time, could be per month, could be per week. You got the figure. and that is interacting with the environment, causing an environmental impact called deforestation. The entire landscape, the entire land, vast land is bald. Few acres of forest trees, which took them about 50 to about 100 years to be full grown, brought down in just a matter of weeks and months. And if we look from the aerial view, we will see vast land of brownish, light brown color of exposed soil. Tell me what happened. Where I'm from, in tropical country, we've got monsoon season, heavy rain. Cities got inundated nowadays. Thank you, acute climate change. Okay, now what happened when there's heavy rain? Surface runoff, a lot of water per unit time, causing what? Falling on all this loose soil because the trees are not there anymore. The soil are loose, the topsoil is being brought away as mud. And some of the water gets into the soil and it touches the red rock structure and the entire part loosen, is saturated with water and thus causes landslide or even mudslide. And there's a lot of rainwater causing mud flood. Look, and when that happens, all these solids of soil particles are being brought into streams, rivers, and our rivers, where I'm from, are getting shallower due to sediment transport. And we have got to dredge those rivers because they are getting shallower and shallower due to erosion and sedimentation. Okay, and in the cities we have got flash flood as well because rivers are shallow. The hydrological balance is upset, the flow is upset. The volume of water that flow that is supposed to be able to be accommodated by that water path, water canal or rivers is now like half of the volume only available for water flow and rainwater, and that causes cities to have flash flood. There you are. Just because we need paper, and there's death, human death involved there, because something is occurring where? Downstream or upstream? Upstream. The forest is the upstream life cycle perspective of paper product. Got it? Now, for the paper factory, they are getting chemicals to process. They need to use titanium dioxide, perhaps. They need to use caustic. They need to use some bleaching agents. These are all chemicals which is being mined, okay, that interact with the environment, causing resource depletion and perhaps geological damage as well. So I put it there. Got it? So these are the environmental impact due to the interactions in order to get that environmental aspect. The interactions is the effort that we use, the process that we use to retrieve those environmental aspects from where they belong. And then in the paper, for example, newspaper, it becomes old newspaper. This is in Bahasa Malaysia. Translation of old newspaper is Surat Khabar Lama. We are quite fortunate. Here we have got recycling, and anywhere else in the world as well, I believe. So we get recycling, we do recycling of papers. What we do is a newspaper with a newsprint, which we know the ink is made up of what? Benzene. And then we have got to mix with water, hydrolyze it, and we get phenols over there. And then we got to bleach with hydrochloric acid and a few other chemicals, and we get, well, polychlorinated biphenyls in the effluent, but it's not treated in the effluent treatment plants. Of course, we get recycled paper. It's good to have recycled paper, and that recycled paper can be turned into tissue papers perhaps, and other types of papers, and that factory is also, the recycling factory is generating another set of environmental aspects, which is effluent, and this causes an impact called water pollution. And also it's got industrial effluent treatment system generating sludge, and that has caused to be disposed of as hazardous waste in landfill and cause what is called soil contamination. So this is the interaction of all these environmental aspects with the environment causing those respective environmental impact. This has been the life cycle perspective of paper. We need to understand this in order to identify our environmental aspects, and we need to know the upstream and downstream life cycle perspective of each aspect that we are addressing. If it is an input aspect, as I mentioned earlier, we got to look at upstream associated impact. When we are addressing output environmental aspect, we look at the downstream of its life cycle perspective for the relevant environmental impact. I hope that is understandable, and we are going to use this knowledge here. I am going to produce this video to facilitate you, your consultants, and your trainers. Please get deeper into this by consulting your respective environmental management system consultants and trainers. Go deeper. This video is not to supersede their effort. This is just a complementing their effort, and I hope you're able to capitalize on this. Watch out for this video. I think it will be coming another 4 or 5 more videos after this. We will use this input-output analysis to identify environmental aspects for our environmental management system ISO 14001. So hope to see you in the next video. As Malay, I wish you in bahasa Malaysia semoga dikurniakan kesenangan, keselamatan, kesejahteraan, dan kebahagiaan kehidupan di dunia dan di akhirat. And as a Muslim, I wish everybody, wherever you are, anywhere, whatever color, whatever faith. Until we meet in the next video, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.